Vechtersbazen wordt mede mogelijk gemaakt door Unibet.
It's time for Vechtersbazen!
De Vechtersbazen zijn terug in je leven, terug op je beeldscherm of op je oren, hoe je deze podcast ook tot je neemt. Je weet, die zijn op alle platforms met de beste verhalen over je favoriete vechters van het verleden, van het heden of van de toekomst. En ik heb een heel bijzonder koppel hier vandaag. Niet eens één vechter, ik heb twee mensen bij mij vandaag. Ten eerste een van mijn favoriete interviews. Sorry, I have to do the intro in Dutch of course. Die vorige week haar afscheid vocht en nu een heel nieuw leven ingaat. Heb ik het ook over de Timebomb en Stil de Champ, Tiffany van Soest. Yes. Welcome. En naast jou, een man die heel lang al bij haar zijde staat. Hij is onder andere, hij was rapper, hij is documentairemaker, coach en alles en nog wat. En hij mag zichzelf introduceren wat zijn echte titel is. Net over John Bang Reilly. So, welcome. What was your official title?
What? Epigenetic mutationist.
Explain that.
Epi means on.
Yeah.
And human beings are genetically, by nature, you're a particular way. But epigenetics is being affected by outer factors. Okay, so it's like, for instance, if you're living at altitude, or if you want to go to altitude, it will change your ability to take in oxygen. So when you come back down, again, you have more stamina. So it's about basically choosing a lot of outer factors that will mutate the human being into something else.
All right. And how does it correspond with what you do for Tiffany?
Well, what it is, I take care of the body and the nutrition so that when the outer factors are mutating her, i.e. new training, new resistance, new movement, and these type of things, that a certain amount of pressure causes the body to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
So my job is to make sure that the body can take the pressure and doesn't break, because then the mutation won't happen. You know what I mean? So I manage all the places that create the pressure, and I also manage protecting the body and giving the energy to deal with the pressure until she mutates and evolves into whatever she needs to do for the opponent.
You just released a 12-minute documentary on YouTube, which is great, which I can recommend. And in that document you see a couple of different, like the underwater training and the ice baths, and like different than what you would usually see from a fighter. Are those the kind of things you also pointing to that had to do with that?
Because I have a dance background.
Yeah.
So I found that dancers, especially because they work so much and they're touring and these type of things, they look after their bodies really well.
Yeah.
Because if a tendon goes or a muscle goes, they're finished. But then I looked at a lot of sports people, maybe because of all these strength and conditioning guys that are mixing amongst fighters now. People's knees are going, pull muscles, pulling out of fights, not making weight properly and all of these type of things. And I thought, you look at the Russian ballet, they're coming in at weight all year round. Sometimes they're doing a matinee and an evening show, 2 shows a day. And sometimes doing a whole piece on one leg and the leg's never gone, never blows up. So I brought these aspects of lengthening her muscles, so the tendons are more pliable, so they're not going to pull off the bone when she's put under pressure. And then the diet aspect of it, I did a movie called Shape, where I learned about how to mutate the body using certain foods.
Yeah. But does all of it transcend into fighting? Because dancing and fighting can be two different things. I mean, the intensity of certain things can be very different.
Yeah. If I had a fighter like Alistair Overeem, it wouldn't translate, right? But she's predominantly a footwork person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like the stop and go of it. So you have to, her ability to stop and be out of range has to be matured. You know what I mean? To take off, the fast twitch, angles and all these type of things. And we have this thing that the boxing coach Luke says it's all about feet first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the dancing aspect, like I said, it lengthened the muscles, because she's quite a short girl. For her jab needs to be lengthened. You know what I mean? And the longer the muscles are, is the longer the shots. You know what I mean? The shot travels longer, it has more impact.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. So I want to talk about that a little bit later, about your connection, the two of you, and your future endeavors. Now you're officially a retired fighter, but since we also still a fighting podcast, I want to get into last week.
Yeah.
Your final fight in Paris. You announced your retirement a while back, and this was it. And I can imagine there's a lot of things that come with it. Maybe looking forward to have your last fight, but also maybe the anxiety of having your last fight. And let's start with the fight itself, because I can't imagine a bigger or better storybook ending than that night. How you beat Sarah Musadak in your final fight, being the main event all of a sudden as well.
Yeah.
How was it?
Like you said, it was like a storybook ending, and win by knockout, suddenly become the main event, literally moments before I walked out to fight.
How was it? Can you paint that situation a little bit for us?
Yeah, so before we go out to the ring, whenever there's the fight before us, then we have to line up behind them and get ready and wait till it's over. And so I was kind of just pacing back and forth, staying focused in my zone, expecting the fight in front of me to end and then go out and do my thing. That fight ended in a knockout, so
also
I had to
a head kick.
Had to get myself ready quickly. And I don't have as much time because you heard the crowd, and that kind of has a little bit of an effect, like, oh, something big just happened out there. And so I'm getting ready to go, and then they say, hold on. And I didn't really pay too much attention to why I needed to hold on, because I was, when I'm at that point, I'm just trying to stay calm, trying to stay focused, do what I need to do. And there was a long pause, and at that point was when Badr had gone out to speak. I still didn't really know what was going on. And then someone from production, as I was standing there, just ran by and went, "You're the main event," and kept walking.
Bye.
Yeah, and I was like...
Oh, by the way, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, huh? Okay. And then at that point, obviously something happened. I don't know, did someone get hurt? Like, who knows? And then I saw the other half of the co-main event, James McSweeney, come walking by, like, with his shoes on and stuff. I was like, okay, so that fight's not happening.
No.
And then I could hear what was going on a little bit from the ring, and I heard Badr speaking, and then I just caught whispers that he wasn't fighting. And at that point, I had to pay attention enough so that I knew for myself kind of what was going on. But then at that point, it was like back to my bubble, back to my focus.
Yeah. How did you react to that? Because it doesn't change when you're going to fight. You will still the next fight. That doesn't change. But maybe the magnitude of the fight changes a little bit. How did it affect you, and how do you react to it?
When I found out I was the co-main event, I just looked up and I said, God. I looked at him and I was just like, how is this my last fight? And suddenly, like, I'm the main event. Like, God just did this. Yeah. This is crazy. So,
like an omen.
Yeah. And it gave me a little bit of extra something, a little extra energy, just something special. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to get to that fight, because that head kick was picture perfect. But I really want to know that like this last moments leading up to the fight, because we talked when I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago when you announced your time. We talked about it a little bit, because everything from now is going to be the last time. It's going to be your last weight cut, your last warm up in the dressing room, your last hand wrap, your last workout, all these little things, And so how were these last couple of hours / days leading up to this moment?
It changed moment by moment. Some moments where I was like, there's always this feeling I have before any fight. I've had it every single fight, over 30 fights now. It never went away, but there's always at least a brief period of time where I'm like, this is so fucking stupid. Why do I do this to myself? I hate this. And at one point I'm like, I'm so glad this is the last time I have to feel this. This is stupid. Why do I put myself through this? And then I went, oh, this is the last time I'm ever going to get to feel this. Because at that point, I actually wrote a poem on the way to the venue.
The poem that played during your walkout?
No, a different one.
Okay, yeah.
And in that moment, as I was writing it, I was trying to make sense of what that feeling was. And it came to me that nervousness, that feeling of like just this, it's a different kind of anxiety. It's not a bad thing. It's actually the magic, like I imagine it like a tank filling up. Like this is my superpower loading right now. And I only get to access it and get to experience it if I'm able to stay calm and accept it and feel it and work with it. If I try to fight it, if I try to deny it, if I try to ignore it, it's not gonna work.
No.
And only in the moments of where I have to really face any fear, any insecurity, any doubt, that's when I'm meeting my truest, purest self. And so realizing that I'm probably never going to meet myself in that specific way ever again, by choosing to retire, was kind of sad.
Mhm.
I was like, well, I'm sure there's going to be other ways that I'm going to meet myself, because, you know, there's so much more to life than fighting, and so many more other experiences, and maybe in different ways or bigger ways. But specifically for that, there was the moment where I'm like, God, I'm so glad I don't have to do this again. Because it's difficult, right? Nobody really likes to do difficult things, but growth and only great things occur outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah, being uncomfortable, yeah.
And that's just an extremely uncomfortable feeling. But once you get past it, it's the calm before the storm. On the other side of that feeling is like bliss and just a calmness and a centeredness that you also don't really get from other things. It's like the sense of accomplishment you get after doing something really difficult. It's like that.
Yeah, but at that moment, when all these things happens and he mixes emotions and all these things go happening around you, do you manage to find a way to soak it in a little bit? Because I can imagine you also tend to turn inside yourself a lot for a moment like that. But yeah, being such a big moment, being such a significant moment, being the last time, I wish for you that you find the energy to soak it in a little bit, to enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know?
I want to say that I did, but only in like small sips,
Yeah.
because I felt too nervous or too afraid to think about that too much and then lose that special sweet spot of where I needed to be mentally and emotionally. But I also didn't want to completely ignore it. I wanted to savor it. I mean, I wish the runway to the ring was a little bit longer. The walk felt a bit short. Because there's been times where it has been longer.
Yeah.
Where like, sometimes I get halfway down, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm still not to the ring yet. Jeez, this is a long one. But I mean, everything happened the way it was meant to on that night. Because if the runway to the ring had been a little bit longer, or what happened before the fight didn't happen, or my coach had took 5 minutes longer wrapping my hands, then, you know, if I took like one less sip of water in the morning, the entire course of the fight could have been completely different.
Yeah.
You know, like, so everything was perfect.
Everything was perfect. Well, the fight was perfect because right from the opening bell, I could see you were very present in the moment. You were there. You were sharp. The eyes were good. The technique came out clean. That lead counter hook was there all the time, and then up until that picture. Yeah, you describe how it happened. That head kick finish in the second round.
I jabbed.
Yeah.
And I noticed when I jabbed, she was looking to parry and jab. It's really common. Parry, like someone jabs, parry, jab back. But I noticed that she was parrying heavy. She wasn't. It wasn't in tight.
No.
There was a big gap. And one of my, I guess, gifts in a sensory way, like I see openings, they flash in certain colors, or I don't know. Like it's hard to describe it. But I saw the color light up, like where the space was. And so when I was like, okay, I'll see if she reacts the same way twice, because, you know, try to pick up a pattern. And so I faked it. And when I faked it, I saw she parried it again. I saw the opening. And so right behind it came the kick. And my coach, Leandro, and I were working a lot of same side attacks. So same punch, same side kick.
Yeah. Well, very much carbine style. Yeah.
Yeah, just different. Because normally you go opposite side, right? If you throw the left hook, the right kick comes. If you throw the straight, right, the switch kick comes.
Yeah.
But for this particular fight, we were going same side.
Yeah.
So that was it. That was in the programming. But what I like to do, because I'm a footwork fighter and people know I'm moving my feet, I like to use my hands kind of as distractions.
Mhm.
So if I'm doing something with my feet, I'm going to give you something to think about with my hands. So at the same time I feinted the jab or used my upper body, I slid my back foot up a little bit to close the distance. And as I did that, the left kick was kind of already on the way. So created the opportunity, saw the opening, see if she would do the same thing twice, faked it. She did the same thing twice, but all within that micro moment was able to
I was
to
about to
find
say,
that
because
opening.
this all sounds like very conscious thoughts, conscious considerations. While all this happens in like less than a split second
Yeah.
before you execute, you think about it, see it, analyze, and execute,
Yeah.
and this happens in like
Yeah. Well, I mean,
That's amazing.
that's just years of experience and subconscious training kind of taking over. So there's a certain degree of thought, but there's also, you know, a lot of it's just programmed from years and years of practice.
beautiful. And then everything comes together. You said it beforehand, you're going to finish with a bang. You're going to say you're going to do with the finish. You did, so you kept your word. Then I saw the emotions coming out afterwards when you realize probably this is it, right? This is the pinnacle. This is the moment. You finish out on top. You've been there the whole process, been along the way. You envisioned this with her together. How was that moment for you?
Both of us have imposter syndrome a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's like we said we were going to do it when we first had the meeting. And it was a little bit of background. When I first met her, it was just about doing poetry together.
That's how
And then
just
That's how we met.
Mm-hmm.
And then getting to know her a little bit more and being around her a lot more, I saw the mess. I was like, how's this talented girl even operating with a coach that's a drug addict, another nutritionist that was offering growth hormone and telling her that it's a supplement? And I'm looking at all of this, and she loves everybody just to get along. So she's just overlooking the damage that can be caused. So then I had a lot of contacts in Holland because I made a film with Andy Sauer. I made a music video with Tyrone Spong.
Mm-hmm.
I have a fighting background. I was a boxer since I was 8. So we all gelled as friends. And then I ended up being a mentor to Andy Sauer and Tyrone Spong because of I'm a wordsmith, a griot. You know what I mean? So I can express emotions really well. So we had a lot of discussions about mental blocks and all of these type of things. And then I was just like, why don't you just come to Holland as an experiment and see how you get along with these different styles?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that dancers can adapt to any choreography. But the choreography that was over there, it couldn't get her past Anissa Maxin.
No.
No matter what they did, they couldn't get her past Anissa Maxin. I didn't know what it was that was the sticking point. And then I found out how she was making weight. And one time she had to be carried on somebody's back to the scales because of water flushing and all of this. There's no minerals if you water flush, so then the fighter's not intelligent anymore. So I was like, this is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So then I decided, I have a Muslim background also, and you're talking about people that live in very, very harsh environments, and the micromanagement they do to live in those environments and flourish is what's important. So I started to apply a halal diet, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Fasting, she did Ramadan. And then you do your research into these great people like David, right, who was killed Goliath. And then you go, well, what made him this intelligent warrior? And he had this fast that he used to do, is to eat one day, not eat the next, eat one day, not eat the next. So when she was making weight, instead of water flushing and saunas, we did the fast of David. And then the body started to mutate.
Yeah.
She's one of the most best conditioned females on.
Yeah, I was about to, sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but I wanted to say something about that, because when you came into the ring last week, you took off your robe, I was like,
yeah,
God damn.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
Looked like some kind of superhero.
I
yeah.
felt like a superhero.
Yeah, but you, I mean, not that you look bad before, absolutely not, but you
Yeah.
looked
Yeah.
way different.
Best-
I've
yeah,
never
yeah.
seen you
Everything
rip
came
like
together,
that.
man.
Yeah, I mean, that was always, like, since we started working together, it was, what, about 3 years ago?
Yeah.
It's always been a progression.
Yeah.
Try to beat the last time, try to beat the last time. And yeah, like the mess he was talking about. This was, as we got to know each other, and he's like, I'm telling him about, at this point in my career, this happened. At this point, this happened. So like he kind of took what had happened over maybe like a 7 or 8 year span, and then after all that point, he mentioned that I had a coach who was a drug addict, who was kind of like my home base. And then once that fell apart, I was like trying to find somewhere, so that's why you see different people in my corner all the time, like try this camp, try this camp, try this camp. Then Johnny came along and said, let's go over here to Holland. And then
but it's been quite, because I know you've been in Holland for a while and training with different people, but it's been a process, right? It's not come overnight.
Yeah, I mean, we had a think tank.
Yeah,
because there was no way I was gonna take responsibility of a fight like this without having intel. So her tape went out to Andy Sauer, to Tyrone Spong. Tyrone Spong was a great. He would say, okay, her left needs improving. You know what I mean? Her right, she scoops it. She doesn't turn it over. She backs up in a straight line. So all of these things, it was like, initially, fighters are very proud. And it was like, what? I'm what was it, 8 or 9 time world champion at the time?
At that time, yeah, I'd already...
What do you mean I ain't got a jab?
Yeah.
So there was a little bit of friction in the beginning, but then you start to seeing the results. Then she's making weight without having to use a sauna.
Yeah, everything, like we said, it was just a constant
So slowly the
improvement.
belief system started because it's working.
Yeah.
So the belief system, and then she goes against Anissa Maxin and closes her eye and starts dominating her fighters. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And like standing in the pocket, not just going so far out of range and then having to reset. She's just there and able to attack immediately.
Yeah.
And then I took her to London with this amazing guy called Luke, who basically all he does is create the anatomy to weaponize her body so that when she hits something, it goes to sleep. Yeah. And the training changed because the company that she was working for, it was like, okay, initially you're different, so we traded on that, but now we need knockouts.
Yeah.
Okay, and you have a defensive fighter that's on the back foot, now needs to stand a little bit, get
Close,
grounded.
yeah.
So then I was getting pictures of black eyes started to happen.
He's like, what happened to you? I'm like, I'm trying to stay in the pocket. I'm learning the hard way.
Yeah, but it's all boys, and that was another problem we had because she couldn't get a read on whether it was being effective because she's fighting men all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And even when we went to shoot fighters in London, they have a cage in the middle of the ring and it's all savages in there. And the first time, because I kept moving her around because there's a thing where if you start making friends with your sparring partners, you're not learning anymore. You know what I mean? They don't want to mess with the friendship. So I kept moving her, and especially taking her into where she's a foreigner in the place. The people they got something to prove. It's like they're not gonna let her get over on them. So she went to shoot fighters, and they put this little guy on her that tried to maul her, and they had a war in with a cage in the middle. I've got Venom Page is cornering this guy. I'm cornering her. And he's going dance. I said, you can't dance. And it was crazy.
It's like something out of a movie.
It was amazing.
The whole gym stopped. They're like, there's guys hanging on the outside of the cage watching.
Yeah.
And who was there? Derek
Chisora was there.
He was there. Like,
and he's standing next to me going, his mouth kind of dropped open. And he said to me, she's tough, man. You know what I mean? So through all of this process, the body is mutating. She's getting stronger. And then there's certain things that we do in the diet as well. The supplementation goes away, mineralization becomes high. Without micros, you can't make the macro, the muscles. Mm-hmm. So then what happens is in between that, you can only keep the micronutrients in the body if there's no stress. So in between that, there's flower arranging, there's painting, there's love. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? GABA gets released in the brain. GABA allows you to be more tenacious, concentrate more. So if you put all of these things together, then you get the body that you saw.
Yeah.
Well, and the intelligence as well, because the thing about that punch is that we saw it in slow motion. Yeah. And what's interesting is the face. Like she saw it completely relaxed.
Yeah.
She saw everything.
Yeah, that was one of the things I wanted to touch on. Indeed, if you look at the slow-mo, look at the replays, you're like in total control. You're like very calm and collected.
Yeah.
You know exactly what you're doing at that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask you, because the things you said, you showing these tapes to Andy Sau and Tyrone Spong, and they're giving like coming back to you. It's like, well, your jab can improve, and you're moving back in a straight line. How's that for you? I mean, you obviously got the championship mindset. You're strong-minded, but also you've been very open about how you can be very insecure, and so I can imagine people coming back to you that can fuck with you a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's like kind of giving strength to the imposter syndrome that I've battled with already on my own. I mean, that's kind of been the whole thing my whole career, is like I have all these belts and championships to prove that I'm good, yet there's something in me that doesn't believe it, you know, and the only reason that I even know it or I'm aware of it or believe it to some degree is because other people tell me. And so that's the only reason why I can like say it for myself. It's like, but if nobody else told me, I wouldn't think I was that.
Can you imagine
great.
that how I stood on myself when we were sitting in the cafe in Amsterdam? I didn't know she had the imposter syndrome to this degree. And I'm using words like, you're going to be the greatest of all time, a Hall of Famer. It's just making
I'm just like, what are you talking about?
Shut up.
But like to hear those things coming from guys like Tyrone and Andy, these are guys I watched coming up, heroes of mine. And so on one end, it's like, you know, the fragile ego. To hear that from people you look up to, you're like, oh, shit.
You think I sucks? Is that the fault?
Yeah, but on the other side is like, okay, these guys are the best in the world. I'm going to take
it to heart.
Yeah. You know, it's not a bad thing.
No.
You know, and that's one of the things I think a lot of fighters struggle with, or people in general, is that battle with the ego.
Yeah.
It's evil and wicked, and it's man, it can really mess up your life.
Yeah.
You know, and so you got to get it in check, and fighting is a good tool for that.
Yeah. I think that it's something a lot of people underestimate, especially fighters, because it's so much about ego, and to a certain degree you need ego in able to step inside the ring and face another human being who's trying to smash your head off. At the same time, ego will steer you away from necessary criticism and being vulnerable and being able to open up and be willing to improve yourself, right?
Yeah.
So one thing, if you take the both Musadak fights, so this one and the one last year, two totally different fights, totally different views, if I might say so. Because for me, as an outsider watching that first fight, it looked like there was a little bit too much about the aesthetics of everything and not enough about the fight itself. While now we were very much into the fight right away. What is that difference? Maybe both of you can explain what the difference between that fight and the second fight.
The first fight, I'd been working more on boxing and defense, and because with every opponent, every fight I have, I don't really train too much for a specific opponent, and I just do, okay, this fight I want to fight like this. And this is like, I use them as the canvas to make my painting on. You know, like, this is the opponent I can apply this to, or I want to work on this. And so for that fight, the plan was to make it more of a boxing match, make it more defensive. I was dancing a lot in between training sessions, so I was like, I'm gonna see if I can throw in some b-boy moves and combine it with fighting. And so I'm like, okay, I tried that in the middle of the fight. You know, at one point you see me do a little like a switch and then hit her with a jab. I'm like, okay, that works. So like I'm like experimenting and playing in the middle of a fight. It's not that I don't.
You're experimenting in the middle of a world title fight. That's a bold move.
It's not that I don't take it seriously. It's
no,
just,
I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah, it's just that I don't know. It's just I don't know. It keeps it interesting, and so that was that fight. And obviously, I did what I needed to do to get the win, and the judges agreed because it was unanimous. Fighting in front of a hostile Moroccan crowd, and with her being the aggressor in the fight, you know, they would argue that maybe she did more. But if you really watch the fight, I didn't get touched.
No, I agree.
I didn't get touched.
I 100% agree that you won the fight. It was just, it was a different kind of fight from your side, different than I was used to see you fight. And like I said, it seemed like you were a little bit, but Do you understand? I understand now. It's because of the experiment.
Yeah.
But now you were back to real fighting. You were there with a mission, and you were just.
Well, I was also told later that that was the worst fight in Glory history.
Who told you that?
Some people at Glory.
Really?
Yeah.
Mhm.
The phone call was, it's the first time that women were the co-main event.
Yeah.
And they said, we had all this confidence in you. And it was actually the worst fight in Glory history.
And
And we wanted to cancel the women's division
Yeah.
after.
That must hit like a bomb.
Well, the way it happened is that where I come from, you make challenges like that. It's like a heavy aggressive response.
Mm-hmm.
So we were both on the call, and it was like, okay, she thinks she won. And no disrespect to her, she was just in the middle of something that we were going to prove. That's the sad thing for her.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? But the worst fight in Glory history. Okay, watch. So then we went and.
But they said that after she had a second fight, she fought again before we fought. I didn't get to fight
Yeah,
again.
no.
I was on the shelf for almost a year. Her fight after our fight, I think that was a better case for being one of the worst fights in Glory history. The opponent just stunk it up by hanging on her, and she wasn't able to make the adjustments to make it an exciting fight. And so to hear those words after seeing that fight too was just kind of like.
So then we just got on this mission. It was like
I was about to say that it
wasn't just about fighting her.
No.
It was about, oh really?
making a point.
Okay, watch. And then we went on killer mode. Everything has to. I mean, we had some stuff that we wanted to do in that. I was shocked that she knocked her out so early, because we were like, we're gonna break her up in front of them, and then say, watch this, and then kill shot. You know what I mean? So everybody just got fired up because of what was said. That's why she ended up in London. That's why we brought in a boxing trainer. And this guy's got two fighters called the Fail Twins. They both fight on the same bill. As soon as you get trapped, you go to sleep. All this guy does is train people, weaponize human bodies. You know what I mean? And then you got Leandro, who was like, oh really? Are we going to mess this party up? You know what I mean? So it was just, it would have been, if it went longer, it would have been even more a brutal
Dominant.
beating.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it ended quite sudden.
Yeah. I mean, but it didn't matter who the opponent was.
Sure.
That was just the mentality for
Just
whoever they were going to
prove a
put in front
point.
of me.
Yeah.
So it just happened to be Sarah again. So,
Yeah.
I mean, but whoever it was on that night,
Yeah.
that was going to be the result.
Yeah, and in the end, it's like full circle, right? Because you were the first glorious women's champion
Yes.
at Collision as well, again,
Yeah.
before Badahari.
Mhm.
Well, you were supposed to be before Badahari now, but that's a different story.
Well,
But
that was the second time I saved the show when he was at the top of the bill. The one
Yeah.
in Belgium
yeah,
when the riot
Yeah.
happened. Yeah.
yeah. So you're used to it. So it's
Yeah.
It's very common-
became
very
kind of
common.
a tradition almost.
very common thing. But
Yeah.
but to be the first woman to win the world title in Glory, the first Glory women's champion, and then to go out on a high like this, on an event like that, I think that's like full circle, right? Couldn't be more perfect.
Yeah.
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 So I don't know if it's too early to ask you that now, because it's just been a week ago. But yeah, still, looking back, you had a long, storied career, starting at a young age with karate and being the Lions Fight champ and being the two-time Glory champ. Being a two-time champ is always like something special for me, because that proves who the real champions are. You can lose the belt and come back from that. I don't know if it's too soon to reflect, but if you look back now, you look back at your career, what do you see?
I see just the human story in the metaphor of fighting. Like life is full of peaks and valleys, triumph, tragedy. If you think of like the arc of a movie, it's good, it's bad, it gets worse. There's a struggle, there's a growth, and then it gets better. I would say that, my career kind of followed that, and there was peaks, there was valleys, there was struggle. there was a lot of personal growth and development and change. And I feel like people in sports or entertainment, where there's eyes constantly on them, everybody goes through their life and their transformations, right? But I feel like I've done it with the world watching. So I've kind of, I like to use the lotus flower as an example. It's symbolism. I feel like it applies to me as well, like growing out of muddy waters to blossom into something beautiful. And I feel like that's kind of what my journey in the fight industry has been. I mean, it started off well, but I definitely had some muddy waters to grow out of and blossom out of. And especially in these last 3 years, this last part, these last chapters, maybe I was a little bit of a late bloomer where I finally learned that it was okay to be myself and to embrace my weirdness and my uniqueness, when earlier on in my career I thought, oh, this is how a professional athlete is supposed to look, how they're supposed to talk, how they're supposed to... This is what the industry says you're supposed to do. I was too insecure to really just do my own thing and be myself, and I have to give a lot of credit to Johnny for being the one who recognized my uniqueness and encouraging it, and that's what you want to wear that, that's dope. Do that funny thing that you do. Like normally I'm like, I'm not doing that on camera, that's weird, like he's like, no, read your poetry, like that's amazing. Like Muhammad Ali had Bandini, telling him, giving him his confidence, say this, he's that for me. He's been that for me.
Yeah, because I was about to ask you, obviously, like self-reflection and knowing yourself and getting more confident with yourself, come with years and experience and all the things you go through in life. But also don't think it's a coincidence that it happened right about the time that you started to go out or be together or be involved with each other. So what role did you play in that?
I didn't really do anything. It's like with the lotus flower, but then I also look at what's this thing? Is it type 4? It's not, they say it's not a disorder, but type 4 people will be communicating with everything, with words, with your body. So if you look at the last outfit she was wearing, it's gold, all right? Now gold is already there. You just take all the stuff away and it's revealed, okay? So I didn't do anything. I just saw the gold struggling with all of this other stuff around it, and I had this ability to just move, and took all the stuff away, and then she does her. So it was like, what's your ring walk going to be? I'm going to choose this artist's work. They said, but you're an artist though. So so do your own poetry. I really like to wear, like when you had the disco ball helmet. She's like, I really like it. Then I like this disco ball helmet. And I was like, okay, that's nice. Next thing I know, it was in the living room. And I'm like, are you going to wear that? And she's like, I'm thinking about it. And I'm like, then wear it. And then I thought it was just for the wow factor. And then she had a philosophy to it. It's like, why are you wearing that? It's the shine in my mind, So then all of this, as a poet, I'm like, everything she's doing now is language, So then we went to therapy because of the imposter syndrome type things. She had a great mentor in Karen, lady called Karen, who helped her with that. So we just took all of this stuff away, and then you see these performances coming out, But as soon as somebody was saying that I built it, we moved. You know what I mean? Because this talent was there from day dot. When she was a footballer, she was amazing. When she did karate, she's amazing. Whatever she does, she's going to, then she does her paintings. She does this on the level of Jackson Pollock, but it's done with her feet, And then to take her moment where such a great knockout and then go, it's not about me for a moment, it's about Morocco. You know what I mean? And all of these things is who she really is just came out. And for me, it's a pleasure unchaining people. That's what I like to do, because the whole world is about, it keeps talent down, people get in each other's mind and they crush each other, do you know what I mean? But freeing people, probably personal with me, is something great to watch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that was my drive.
Coming from somebody who did that for himself, as a
pretty
dancer,
much,
as an artist, as a musician, as everything.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
Yeah. How unchained me?
Yeah.
Well, I was, because of trauma, I wasn't acting very well as a child, brought up with a single mother. So I thought being emotional was normal. But then I was emotional and aggressive, so pretty dangerous. They got me incarcerated and all of these type of things. And when you grow up in dangerous environments that I was growing up in, you need to disarm the environment. And I found there was two ways you can do it, either with fighting or with entertainment, with being a joker or poetry or music and all these type of things. So I was able to unchain myself from constantly getting into trouble with art. And I found that people didn't get close to me to hurt me. The fighting thing, it was always too close, and then I got stabbed multiple times and all this. So when I went more into the art thing, people would just stop and say, we're not going to physically hurt him, he's valuable.
Yeah.
And then I started speaking. One time I was in jail and a lot of the guys' girlfriends want to leave them and stuff, and these guys are not very expressive. So I would write the love letters for the guys.
Really?
On the visits. And then they would give me phone cards so I could speak to people outside as a trade, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I got out, I started doing the same. I started studying people, the sociological environment, and then started expressing the emotions of the disenfranchised people. So the people in the Belmar, people in Rotterdam, places like this, started to love me because I was eloquent about our story. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, that's why Andy Sauer loves Sound of a Boy.
Yeah.
That's why Gilbert Yvel's got Beware of the Dog as another title of mine tattooed on his body.
Yeah.
That's why Tyrone Spong, basically, I did the same thing. I write love letters for him. You know what I mean?
Really? You wrote love letters for Tyrone Spong?
Of course. You know what I mean? I have a great poem that I did for him about him as a fighter. It's not even released yet.
No.
We just have to find the right
Right
footage to do.
Yeah.
And I had to write a poem for her, but it took a lot more elements to finish this poem with that kick. It took people, diet, and all these, but this is basically a 3-year piece of poetry played out on that night.
Not much words to add to that, right?
Coming from a couple of poets named Time Bomb and Bang Bang. How's that for poetry? Only God could write that one.
Most unusual kind of poetry. Most unusual place for it to come from, probably. Yeah. So obviously fighting brought you a lot. Many high moments, traveling, friends, etc. Also probably took a lot from you. The sacrifices and the things you deny yourself and the struggles and everything. So yeah, looking back at those two things, what are the most important things that fighting brought you and took from you?
Fighting brought me connection to people and places around the world that I'd never even dreamed was possible. So I guess if that's like a thing, a physical thing that it brought me was so invaluable. I mean, just like, yeah, the words are escaping me. It also brought me, or gave me, the confidence in my own resilience and my own human spirit. That just happened to be the vehicle for which I discovered that through. It can come from other places, but for me in my journey, that's what fighting gave me. It took from me my sanity sometimes. And it took my ego a little bit. Yeah. Because when you're young, especially when you're young, you have a really big ego, but it also, and mine was, I had a chip on my shoulder, everything to prove, Won a couple of belts that I was the shit because people told me I was. I believed it too much. And it took, at a certain point, it took all that from me. So I guess in a way, by taking it, it gave me something. It gave me peace.
I was about to explain it to me, because you have so many accolades. You finishing now on top of the mountain. Of course, the road's never straight. It always goes up and down. But you had a lot of high moments. So how does that take away from your ego?
Because it took a lot to experience those high moments and those accolades. So it made me realize that, you know, like in moments where I thought I knew, it made me realize I had no idea, you know. Yeah, it took away all the, basically, like, best way to describe it is barnacles, like stuck to like a piling on a pier or the bottom of a boat, right? All of these programs and beliefs that somehow got attached to me subconsciously, which I thought were things that I needed or things that were me, but it took those away, like revealing gold, you know, like chipping away at those barnacles to get at my true, purest self. And I've always said that when I'm fighting, that's me expressing myself in my purest form, because although I do write poetry and express myself with words, I'm also really shit with words and trying to express myself with words. So where I can't do it with words, I mean, that's why I need to paint. That's why I need to move my body to do it. But to kind of circle back to what I said about that feeling before a fight where you meet your realest, truest self, I have to be in that while I'm fighting. And so while I'm there and the movements that are being expressed, the thoughts that are being thought and played out, the emotions that are coming out while I'm fighting, that's me in my purest form.
What I observed about the ego when I was watching, when there's insecurity, you build an avatar as a survival mechanism. Yeah. You know what I mean? You have to create something in order not to be afraid. Yeah. Right? So you lie to yourself. That's ego, right? Yeah. But then once you put a fighter through these situations, these tough situations, then the ego's like, you manage this. You manage this. Yeah, so you manage this on top of that. So now the ego is not needed anymore because reality starts to build itself. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's how I saw it systematically going away, because I'm not about allowing somebody to blow smoke up their ass. You got to be about it. Where I come from, you can't say you're about that. You will get tested. Yeah. You know what I mean? So we went straight back to the street. We went, you know what I mean, and to London. We went to go and see Graham Simmons. This guy's an old bare knuckle fighter, man. The first thing she saw in him was his hands.
I looked at his hands. I was like, "Oh, can I take a photo of your hands?" These are.
You know what I mean? This is a salt of the earth type of guy. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I wanted her to be around these type of people where it's like, this guy's quiet because he's about that life. You know what I mean? And then it's like, well, okay, how do I become like these people? And he said on the day he was on the camera, and was like, well, you got any advice for her? And he just went, do it.
That's it. And
that's it.
To go back to the concept or the process of epigenetic mutation, you know, they say that, you know, your epigenetics are your environment, and like when people are together, like couples, they start to look like each other, pick up each other's mannerisms, things. Yeah. That's epigenetics. So by being around these types of people in these environments, you start to adapt it. And I'm from Southern California, where it's sunny all the time, and I'm surfing, and everybody's peace and love, and hey man, it's all good. And I love that. And that's a big part of me. That's not going anywhere. But that doesn't really work for fighting too much. So I had to absorb another kind of energy and be in the toughest gyms in Amsterdam, around the toughest fighters and toughest coaches, and get my ass whooped and be around the toughest people who come from struggle, and adapt and mutate epigenetically and soak up that energy. Yeah. So
So looking back, think you wish you would have come to that conclusion maybe a little bit earlier in your career? No?
No. Everything happened
At the right time.
how it meant to, or when it was meant to. You know, it's like what I was saying earlier, the butterfly effect, right? If one little thing had happened differently, the whole course, the whole outcome of the journey of the course could have been completely different. So I wouldn't change a thing.
One of the things I admire what you've done is you kind of conducted your own farewells to the sport, right? And it's not a given to a lot of fighters that you go out on a high, because most fighters don't know when to stop exactly, and a lot of fighters go on too long until the decline sets in. I don't know too long, but past that prime, past that high. So for you to do the way you did, I think that's very admirable. Not a lot of fighters can do it that way. At the same time, it creates like another thing. It's like you have this constant what if, because going out the way you did on a high, that finish, looking the way you did, and everything coming into place. I can imagine for a long time you're going to be having that voice in the back of your head saying, what if? Maybe one more time. What if? How do you deal with that?
I was feeling so good in this training camp too, because I was like, before the training camp started, I'm like, okay, this is my last one, I'm done. And earlier in this year, I did hit a little bit of a low, a depressive episode, just because of some things that were going on in my life with my family and just life and getting older and stuff. And you know, I haven't always lived the healthiest lifestyle in between fights. I enjoy smoking weed and drinking beer and eating burgers and stuff.
Nothing wrong with that.
And there's something wrong with that if you're trying to be the best in the world. And you know, and I've always been blessed with genetics and natural gifts. And again, I really wanted to see how good I could be, and I owed it to myself and the creator and everybody, like, to really see what I can do if I just took away all the shit. And going from that low place and still while training and everything, just being like, yeah, maybe I'm losing a step or two. I just don't feel it anymore. I think I'm slowing down a little bit, just not as focused. And then clean up the diet, clean up my thought process, start praying, start meditating again, adopting all of these practices and starting to feel the changes in my body. And I'm like, oh, I'm actually feeling good again. Maybe I don't want to retire, you know, like maybe, you know, because just seeing the potential and that I was in my own way, and these coping mechanisms, things, they were in my way and holding myself back. It's almost like self-sabotage. Like some poor sense of self-worth saying that I don't deserve to experience my best self. So I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I'm afraid to experience this best self. I don't know, it's some weird psychological stuff. I'm still not to the bottom of it. That's what Martin Luther
King said, our biggest fear is basically becoming our best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not completely over it. There's still some work that I have to do because it's still there. But this is the.
But I remember saying to her that you know, if you're going to carry on fighting because you've set a standard, you're going to have to keep living like this.
Yeah.
And she went, I'm not willing to be that autistic.
I mean, I'm on the spectrum. I'm autistic, right? But like, not that much and for that long. But I also told myself early in my career that 35. Was the number that I wanted to stop at, because I had watched fighting so much and seen, maybe that was around the age most professional athletes were supposed to retire, watching other fighters. And then logically it just made sense that, okay, I started as a pro when I was 22, 35, that's a good, solid career. But still in life at 35, you're still not that old. Like as an athlete, you're old.
Yeah. Well, it depends, but it's always so hard to determine for any kind of athlete, but especially fighters, right? Because it's so visible and so vulnerable and personal. But you know, because a lot of fighters reach that like athletic peak about 30 or 32. It depends on what type or what weight or whatever, what career you had before that, how much mileage you made. but as soon as you reach that athletic peak, then from then it's going down again,
Yeah.
and not
But there's
big leaps, but maybe a couple of percent every time. And when is to determine, like, okay, now I'm at the turning point that I'm going from elite to just being.
Yeah. And is it going to
good.
take something bad for that realization to happen, like
Yeah.
a bad knockout or
Yeah.
an injury or
But there's
something?
another aspect to this that goes on. She's a female fighter,
Mhm.
and there's the biological clock. She's losing eggs and all of these type of things, and she doesn't want to be too old and unfit to have a child. So there's that part saying maybe 35 we should stop, otherwise the time will pass with being a mother even. So there's all of these things that are determining the decision behind the scenes as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like when
And then of course when a fighter, when a fighter commit, there's human hypnotism as well. When you say inside your head, I'm stopping at 35.
Yeah.
When the time started to get close to it, then the body starts to go, okay, remember you said this?
Yeah.
And then if you forget that you said it was going to stop, you're like, why do I feel like I'm going through mud?
Yeah.
Because the body got the memo.
Yeah.
35 is coming,
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's so weird, man. I think one of the hard things about fighting is to determine that moment to when to get out. I mean, there's so many, like a Tony Ferguson, right? At some point, he was like on a 9-fight winning streak. He never got to fight Khabib,
Yeah.
but he was like one of the best of all time. And now, if you see him now, he's just like a shell of himself, and he
Yeah.
can't let go because he's
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
holding on to that greatness he had, like not
Yeah.
even that long ago, you know. But it's gone. It's never coming back
Yeah.
again. And for me as a fan, it hurts. But see
Yeah.
the decline.
Well,
You don't
that's
want to
the
see
thing
it.
also
too,
time
like-
debt, right? It's
well-
like you put all this
Yeah.
amount of time in, and he feels he hasn't been paid back for it.
Yeah.
So they stay around waiting to get the compensation for the time spent.
Yeah.
The body's
it's done.
it's
gone.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this moment that she had. The other part of it that's so perfect is who's there left for her to fight anyway.
Yeah, there's no one left
True.
in the division. You
Yeah,
know, like
that was actually one of the things I was wondering also, especially now you just told me, which I didn't know, that they said that to you about that first Musadak fight, and they were thinking about taking out the women's division. What are you going to do now? Because you've been the face of the company of the women's division for so long. So with you gone now, what's going to happen?
And the standard's been set like this, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
guess it's
Do you
not,
know anything, or you
guess
have any
it's not
thoughts on that?
Guess it's not my problem.
No, that's true. Yeah, that's a very clean way to think about it.
I did, in fighting Sarah
Yeah.
twice, and just kind of passing her in the hallway at the hotel and stuff. And when you fight somebody, you learn a lot about a person without having to speak to them. You can feel their energy and their spirit and what they're about, what their character is like, how much it means to them. I mean, to be a fighter, you have to give it your all. It also takes your all. And in fighting her and just watching her just be her outside of the ring, I recognized a very familiar energy. And when I was 23, I had a chip on my shoulder with everything to prove. I wanted to fight everybody and be the best in the world and walk around all tough. And so I recognized this in her because I felt it and experienced myself, this kind of like,
The tenacity.
like, and how much it meant to her. And I told her after the fight in the corner, I said, this is yours now if you want it. I'm done. Like, she wanted to take it from me, but I was like, I've already done all this. I need to end it how I need to end it. I'm sorry. You can have it when I'm done.
Your own, yeah.
Yeah. But afterwards, I shared some words with her, and I said, look, I recognize a great energy in you. You're going to be a great champion one day. And this is yours now.
Yeah, but the
You can
only way
have it.
she's going to be a champion like you is to have the type of team you had.
This is
That's
true.
the problem.
This
Yeah.
is true, and it's...
She's a raw talent, and this is what I constantly
very
see.
talented,
She's a
yeah.
raw, really talented.
I wasn't fighting main event, co-main event world champions when I was 23. I turned pro at 22, so she's already
Ahead of you.
way further
She
than
just
I
needs
was.
the facility.
She
If
just
she gets
needs
the facilities,
Yeah.
something else.
She is the future.
Yeah.
So much respect to her.
That's nice.
And
of you to
hopefully
say.
she finds the team and the
right-
things that she needs
right
to really...
environment.
Yeah, because man, even after watching our first fight back, I'm like, oh, man, this little girl, man, she's not little girl, this young lady, I have a lot of admiration and respect for her. She's way better at her age than I was at that age.
Yeah.
I don't know who told her to come in and post the left and just cock the right and think it was going to be one shot and you were going to hit this little bee. But how are you going to hit her? Well, somebody basically went, all you got to do is land this. You could see it in her body language. I'm like, what kind of advice is that for a defensive genius?
Yeah.
You're going to overreach, you're going to overcommit, and then you're going to get hurt.
You're going to get clipped.
Yeah.
Well, life after fighting. How does it look like? What does it look like? Sorry.
Still be involved, still teaching always. You know, I've been punching and kicking things since I was a little girl.
I was about to say, it's been such a big part of your life since forever, right?
I mean, I just, even unconsciously, like walking around the house or in the grocery store, it's always a little bit, you know, the body just starts doing it. So I don't think that's going anywhere. And just because I still really enjoy it, and because I've, especially in this last camp, going to London, I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. There's still so much to learn even. So that's something that's always going to have my interest, you know, teaching, giving seminars and things like that. Not full time, but it's always going to be
a part of your life.
A part of my life.
Yeah,
so helping my dad out at his business. You know, he took it over from his father. So, you know, I feel like I have a good opportunity and I'm in a position where I can learn the ropes of his business and do that a little bit. And
what business is that?
Trade show exhibits. He builds and designs trade show exhibits. So
right.
Yeah. So maybe I just learn how to do that and
Finish your movie.
Finish the movie, the curtain call.
I think we might change the name of that.
Really?
Yeah, somebody came up with this.
Oh yeah. Karen did.
Divine discipline.
Divine discipline.
Yeah.
Because it was funny that the girl that she went against, because the dynamic in France, it's very difficult for them to practice their religion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you're young and you're coming up and you're seeing all of this type of pressure, you're not really seeing your culture advertised as an asset. It's always attacked and it's always slandered. So, but the funny thing was that she adopted all of the stuff that practicing Muslims do to deal with the trials in their life. She adopted it all, right? Even down to doing the movements of the prayer as part of rehabilitation for the joints, right? And then the Karen, her therapist, basically went, it was divine discipline, because the diet was even put together, like they have descriptions in the Quran about the diet in heaven, and the diet was based around that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Literally.
Yeah.
And like milk, pomegranates, dates, all of these type of things, you know? And then, so I think the movie, we might change it from curtain call to the divine discipline.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's a nice ring to it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But yeah, so like, and that was another thing that, and I've mentioned it to you a little bit, coming from the West and America, especially California. And I was 11 or 12 years old when September 11th happened. And so all the propaganda, like from the time I was 11 or 12 years old, anytime I heard the word Muslim or Islam, the word terrorist was attached to it. Very negative connotation. And where I grew up in California, there wasn't, I didn't have any Muslim friends or even know any until I moved to Indonesia when I was like in my mid-20s.
Yeah.
So the culture, everything was completely foreign to me, and there was this, I mean, embarrassingly admit that there was a little bit of
resistance.
Not resistance,
Prejudice,
but prejudice. Yeah. But I didn't want to feel that because it didn't belong to me, and I'm very open to all people, races, religions, but I still felt this Islam, Muslim, and I hated it. It's unfair. It didn't belong to me. I didn't put it there. It wasn't my own thought. And so I also wanted to learn and experience this so that whatever was lingering of that was destroyed. And I think the best way to understand somebody is to walk in their shoes, and then and do what they do and think how they think. And through this journey, and because where I'm from, I never really learned anything about the practices or anything, and that's to my own ignorance. I didn't seek it out either. I mean, I've sought out learning about Buddhism and other practices, but because of this built-in little I never willingly or openly on my own
invested in it,
in it, and I'm embarrassed about that now, because after learning so much about it and experiencing how beautiful it is, how beneficial it is, I'm like, man.
Yeah, I don't think you should be embarrassed about it. No, it's just what you're brought up with, or what you get to know in your surroundings. I mean, that saying is onbekend is onbemind. Unknown makes unloved.
Yeah.
I think it's normal. I think it's, if you don't know it, but if you get to know and you're open to it and willing to that, I think that's more important.
I mean, we were talking this morning about moving into, because it was like doing seminars and stuff around Europe. There's a lot of cancellations. There's a lot of, obviously, money problems in this part of the world. And I'm like, there's like, go into Africa, go into Dubai, go into Saudi Arabia. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Women's classes out there,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, would be packed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like she's now more familiar with the culture, so she's more relaxed. You know what I mean? So, and I'm like, they love to learn. And you can imagine the talent that's there. If Sarah's anything to go by, there might be millions of them out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So to go out there and teach what you know and stuff like that, I think would be an amazing thing.
So that's the plan?
It's part of it, yeah.
Part of it,
definitely. Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of hobbies and interests and things. My main thing is I want to contribute positively to the world. I want to help people. I have a really soft spot for kids. So like children with disabilities, people, I mean, everybody in some way, shape or form is hurting and needs help. And,
Of course.
Being on this journey and helping myself with things like diet, movement, dance, nutrition, spirituality, all the things that I've learned that have helped make me better or heal me, I want to give back to people in need. So as long as I can do that in some way, shape or form, I feel like that's my rent to pay here on earth. I've been given these gifts and I want to give them away and share them also.
And hopefully you utilize the Avengers that we put together for you as well. I mean, just
man, I had a
person
dream.
is.
It was like the X-Men. I had a dream team,
This guy Stuart Thomas from London teaches Halton technique. I mean, what she learnt about her body in the little bit of times that he was there, and he could feel thoughts. So if her shoulders went up, he goes, "I don't want to know what you're thinking." This was, and make her use her jaw when the body's doing this, and he had all these little methods he would do to untie the body. But this, which is in the movie. This guy's in the movie.
Yeah.
So a lot of special people in this film, man.
When is it coming up?
We're looking to finish edit. Now we've got the ending.
Yep.
In the
Storybook ending, yeah?
Yeah, man. So in probably about the next month and a half, we'll be ready to go.
That was reasonably quick.
Yeah. All the footage is there.
Right.
It will edit itself. You know what I mean? The way I like to edit, I like to let the movie tell me what shot it wants next. And then we'll do that, and then maybe we'll have a discussion with Videoland or so. We'll see where we want to put it out.
You can use to
sure.
show it.
Yeah.
All right, we'll keep an eye out for that. And well, it sounds like you got so many things on your hands, so many plans, so many activities planned out for yourself. I don't think you're gonna miss fighting.
I will.
Oh, you might miss it,
I will, but I won't. I will, but I won't.
Won't be seduced to a comeback.
Yeah.
Comeback. That's probably it, right?
Depends on the bag.
Depends.
Money talks, baby.
Money talks.
Always. Money talks.
Depends on the bag.
My microphone right away. There we go. Say like that? Okay, good. No.
Yeah, just hold it.
Whatever. All right. So, all I can say is from me as a fight fans, from all our fight fans, I want to thank you for all the great memories and for letting us be a part of your journey. And you've always been very open about your journey with all the highs and but also all of the lows. So you made it very realistic, which I think a lot of people appreciate because it's not only about what the Rocky quote. It's not all rainbows,
Sunshine and rainbows and puppy dogs.
Yeah. So a lot of people can relate to that.
Yep.
I'm sure. So
Yeah.
I want to thank you
Thank you. My
for
pleasure.
everything. I want to thank you also for being here and sharing your stories. The story between the two of you. We're going to look out for the divine discipline, right? Coming out in a couple of months. All be good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jullie ook allemaal. Je hebt het allemaal hartstikke goed begrepen natuurlijk. Gewoon in het Engels. Net zo makkelijk. Jullie allemaal bedankt weer voor het kijken. Of voor het luisteren. Je weet waar we te vinden zijn. Vergeet niet te liken, te delen en te abonneren. En dan zien we jullie weer bij de volgende Vechtersbazen. Oes!
Oes.
Oes.